jump into this Alabama basketball game. As I mentioned, let's start here up at the top with the guys who did not play in this game. We had 3 guys who did not play in this game, which we expected to play, coming into the preview of this game. The guys that did not play were Aiden Holloway, Latrell Reitzel, and Keaton Bristow. Nate mentioned all 3 guys in the pregame. So if you're not aware, I was unable to attend this game. My fiance had an interview in Nashville today and on Monday, and so we were driving home. I was able to catch the majority of this game, at my house. The first maybe 5 minutes or so, I was listening to Chris Stewart. I've been able to catch up on what I did miss, but either way, I wasn't able to attend this game. One of my friends was able to use my ticket, and the big thing that Nate Oates talked to Chris Stewart in the pregame about was that Aiden Holloway and these guys were going to be missing. And Chris asked him, obviously what's each injury and what's kind of the timetable for each guy. And Nate was saying, without saying, in my opinion, was that, hey, if this was potentially a bigger game, these guys would probably be available to play, but that these guys are all day to day. When Nate's saying day to day, that feels like this was a situation where could they play potentially, but it may cause their injury to linger. If we can sit them for this one game and have them potentially recover faster, then let's do that, because it's not worth it to have our guys hurt anymore if they potentially could rest. So Aiden Holloway has a bit of a wrist injury. Keaton Bristow rolled his ankle in practice 2 days ago. And then Latrell Reitzel hurt his finger apparently in the Furman game and re-aggravated it in practice. So that was the injuries that happened, all fairly minor. Keaton Bristow is the only one that really seemed to me that under normal circumstances he may not have played, just because it was 2 days post a rolled ankle. Depending on how bad it is, that's something that can, sit somebody out a little longer. But the wrist and the finger injury, my gut says if this was a St. John's game, Monday kicking off basketball, they probably would have played. However, they did not. And so, we play with just 9 scholarship players, because as we previously mentioned, Jalil Bethea was not going to play. It sounds like he's recovering well. He's off his scooter. He's still in his boot, but he is recovering. So we have 9 scholarship guys. All 9 guys did play. Collins Ongiaka is really the only one that didn't play substantial minutes. He only played 6 minutes. He had 2 points. He didn't look terrible out there. He got 5 rebounds. He didn't look the best out there. He looked about like what I expected. Everybody else played over 15 or over 14 minutes. I thought that there's a lot of good things that you can take out of this game. Obviously, my score prediction, having us at 106 was with Trelly and Aiden Holloway. So the fact that we only scored 91 points in this game, I think is okay. It does not, worry me that we only put up 91 against a team that still had a bad defense. I thought that by and large, Alabama looked really, really good with the ball. They scored 1.23 points per possession. Anything over 1.2 is elite. Nate wants a guaranteed over 1, but anything over 1.2 is absolutely elite. So at 1.23, got to be happy with what you got. The pace did slow down a little bit. I think that part of that was anytime Labaron Philon was not in this game, and he played 31 minutes, so he wasn't a huge percentage of it, but anytime he was not in this game, I felt like Alabama's offense stagnated a little bit, and so I think that was part of that. We only got to 72 possessions. Also, additionally, North Dakota did a pretty good job getting steals. I talked about it in the write-up and in the preview of this game that North Dakota had done a good job getting steals and pressuring the basketball, especially with Eli King. Eli King and Garrett Anderson combined to have 7 steals in this game. They ended up having 11. This is something that North Dakota has been very good at, and so it doesn't shock me. I'm sure Nate Oates is not going to be happy with the fact that we still had 15 turnovers. That's going to be a problem for him. Really, the majority of that's from 2 guys, and that's Davion Hannah and Labaron Philon. Philon had 5 in the exhibitions. He has 4 in this one. Again, that's something that Nate's talked about. He's not going to want to see that. I didn't think they were quite as bad as what we saw in the exhibition. I did not think that Labaron was playing, without himself or whatever. That was causing a little bit more of the issue in the exhibition. I think a lot of this was trying to get other guys involved, and sometimes getting those other guys involved meant a little bit too much fanciness with the passes and such. So I do think that Labaron Philon can clean that up, and I'm sure Nate will want him to do so. But to me, it didn't concern me quite as much as it potentially is going to for Nate. Labaron is kind of the star of this game. He opens the first half with 15 points and 7 assists. Really looks like he can do whatever he wants to do with the basketball. It was a pretty long way through the second half before he scored his next points. He finishes with 22 and 8. This is a situation, and I tweeted out, I think that Labaron Philon at any moment that his teammates are making shots can go for a double double. I think that assist number is going to hover in that 6 to 10 range all season. And I think that how high up that number gets is LeBaron getting the open guy that is able to hit the shot. How the defense is playing, etc. Because I think that LeBaron Philon really has that ability to pass the ball. Also, the burst he has and how well he finishes around the rim causes guys to collapse in. And I think that LeBaron did a great job today. Spraying out, getting his guys involved. Again, he finishes with 8 assists. I thought that LeBaron looked really good. Again, the guy that is he was put into the starting lineup due to the injuries to Trelly and Aiden. But a guy that we talked about all exhibition season, Amari Allen, continues to look like a freshman that is just absolutely playing above what he was projected to be from a ranking standpoint. But additionally, just projected to, what most people thought coming into this season. I know a lot of people talked about him as he played really poor competition in Wisconsin and whatever. But I think that Amari Allen is proving that he is definitely a really good player for Alabama. He's going to be very crucial for us this season, and he's going to have a lot of big minutes. He stuffed the stat sheet today. He had 7 rebounds, which was second on the team. He had 5 assists, a block, and 3 steals. Amari Allen was just everywhere. Really active hands. I really like what he does with the basketball, especially on the defensive side of the ball. He has a shot that looks good. He went 2 for 6, so obviously not his best shooting night, not his worst shooting night. Overall, definitely liked what I saw out of Amari Allen. He's somebody that really, I think long term for this season is going to be really, really good. Houston Millette is a guy that really needs no introduction, especially on this channel. If you followed me for any length of time, you know how much I really like covering Houston, really like talking about Houston. Really good kid. I mean, there's no other way to talk about him. Somebody who I got to ask a question at SEC Media Days from. Houston's a great kid. I really liked his post-game interview, talking about Joseph from the Bible, talking about just everything that Houston is, what he embodies. He does everything else for the team. He leads the team in offensive rebounds. My gut says, he was near the top of blue collar. I have not been able to check and see who actually won. I can kind of check while we're live here. And I think that Alabama has done, and Houston Millette has done a great job. Sorry, Amari Allen actually won the Hard Hat Award. But like I said, I'm sure Houston Millette was very near the top of those rankings. Again, doing so well from an offensive rebounding perspective. When he got his 4th rebound, he was fired up, going to the bench. The thing with Houston Millette is, and if you're not familiar with why he wears the number 95, is the reason he wears 95 is he said, that basketball players play without the ball 95% of the time, right? So it's what you do in that other 95% of the time that determines what happens when you get the ball. And Houston Millette really embodies that because he does everything that you need from a team. He's really the perfect teammate from that standpoint. He does anything you need from that standpoint. But then when you call on him to shoot the basketball, he's 2 of 4 from 3, 5 of 5 from the line. Goes 2 of 2 inside the arc, finishes with 15 points, 5 assists, again, 8 rebounds. He leads the team in rebounding. So, I mean, Houston Millette just absolutely does everything you need from a teammate perspective. And then being an elite shooter, especially an elite catch and shoot guy on top of that, Houston's a guy that's really hard not to root for. He's just an awesome, awesome kid. I really, really like Houston Millette if you are not aware and can't tell. Another guy that I think showed us a lot in this game, and again, this is a smaller team, so we'll be curious to see what happens. He's going to have some big tests here in the next non-conference, so don't want to start singing his praises too crazy early. But Aiden Sherrill, I thought that Aiden Sherrill played really within himself as a big man in this game. This game got moving pretty quickly. I thought that Aiden played really well. He ends up with 4 blocks. And if you're going to have Alabama, play at the pace we play at and how we're going to be this season, we're going to need some guys to come up with some blocks. We're going to need some rim protection. And Alabama actually got 7 blocks in this game. Bull Bowen got one. Labaron got one. Aiden, Amari Allen got one, and then like I said, Aiden got 4. I really think that for Alabama to be successful, you're going to need Aiden Sherrill to get that 2 or 3 blocks a game. You really need him to be that rim protector, because I think that with the defensive ability that you're going to have out in the perimeter with Amari and Davion Hannah, LeBaron Philon, all the different guys that you have out there, you're going to have some gambles trying to get steals. And at times you're going to be feeding people into your big man. And if Aiden Sherrill can continue to protect the rim, alter shots, block shots, it's just going to be such a big deal for us long term. Again, that's something you really thought you were missing with Cliff this leaving last year, and with Aiden Sherrill kind of taking over those duties. Really liked what I saw out of him today. He ended up hitting a 3 as well. Obviously, Nate loves to see that. You're going to want to see that longer term to help kind of stretch out the defense. If he can make 1 3 a game, 2 3s a game type thing, it's really going to help stretch the defense. So I think that long term, that's really great to see from him. But I think that being that rim protector, around the rim, and being the great role guy that he is and solid with the basketball is really what you need to see out of Aiden. The last starter that we haven't talked about, and I think he still does need talked about, even though he had a fairly quiet night, because he goes 0 of 2 from 3, just has 8 points, is Taylor Bull Bowen. Bull Bowen really gives you a lot. He's super fast with the basketball. He was elite at the line today, goes 6 of 6. That was something that Alabama really did pretty well today. Shot 78% from the line, 21 of 27. Happy to see that. Obviously, we talked about how poorly they had shot in some of the exhibitions. Free throw shooting is something that Nate Oates' teams have been up and down at times for. I do think that in general, this is going to be a better free throw shooting team than some others. I think a lot of that's just the pass, dribble, and shoot from everybody across the floor. Also, you have pretty good shooting big men this year, right? I think that Noah Williamson's going to be a pretty good free throw shooter. He didn't take any in this game. Aiden Sherrill's a pretty good free throw shooter. Bull Bowen's a good free throw shooter. You just have good free throw shooters at your bigs, and that's often where you see, obviously, the struggles from a free throw shooting perspective. So I think that long term is going to be really good. The only guy who actually missed 2 is Collins. He went 0 for 2, so that obviously hurt your numbers a little bit. And then London Jemison goes 3 of 5. And we'll talk about London here in a second, because I thought that him and Davion Hannah, and Amari Allen, right? If we take Collins out of the group and just talk about the 3 main freshmen that came in all as one before Collins' reclass, all 3 of those guys looked really good today. And I think that London deserves to be talked about, because he did not do as much in the exhibitions, but I really liked what I saw out of London today. But Taylor Bull Bowen, just the speed he gives you with that size and the versatility he gives you, he's going to be a guy that I think is going to quietly give you, 8 to 10 points a game, but is going to do something in every game that's like, wow, I don't know if there's anybody else on the floor that could have done that. It really felt like Taylor Bull Bowen today was able to, there were steals that he got, or there was, how he's jumping in a passing lane or cutting through something, or just the speed he was, when he's handling the basketball at 6'10". Bull Bowen really is a bit of an alien out there, right? He is elite with the ball. And I think that Bull Bowen is going to be one of the underrated guys this season that's not going to be flashy. He's not going to be, oh my gosh, he posterized somebody with some dunk or something. But I think that Bull Bowen is going to be consistent, and he's just going to give you exactly what you need every game. And that's the kind of guy you need on your team, quite frankly, right? Bull Bowen, I thought, was perfect in this one. Again, we have talked about this at length. North Dakota is not a great team, so you can't take terribly, terribly much out of this. But you saw some of these things in the exhibition, so I feel comfortable saying these. Some of these comments. I just want to kind of talk about what they're doing in the last game. But additionally, like I said, I do think that Taylor Bull Bowen long term is going to be really, really good for us. He's going to do a lot of good things, and I think that you saw some of it today. And again, 6 of 6 from the line from your 6'10 guy. You got to love to see that because he's going to be playing the 4 and playing a lot of big minutes. And so, I fully suspect him to be at the line a decent bit. And if you can have him consistently shoot solid from the line, that's going to be great for the long-term success of this team. And then the last two guys that we'll talk about, and I mentioned both of them a second ago, and it's the last two freshmen, it's Davion Hannah and London Jemison. Davion Hannah, the craziest thing to kind of say from his perspective is I thought that he had a great game. He did have some turnovers and had some issues with that. Obviously, would like to see that cleaned up a little bit. Some of that was just getting into some traffic around the rim and getting a little uncoordinated, so to speak, around the rim and getting a little too fast. But I thought that he still gave you some really good minutes. I think that he has a defensive ability that I really like what I see out of it. He also has an explosiveness that, again, you saw that athleticism. We talked about the dunk attempt and the block from the exhibitions, and he has done it again. He goes up and poster dunks on somebody, two hands, was really, obviously a huge dunk at the end of this game. The fans had started to clear out, and he, brought those that were left back to their feet. I thought that it was a really, an awesome dunk. I thought that Davion Hannah, every time I see something out of him, he's somebody that really, I like what I see out of him. And I really think that long term on this team, he's going to be really good. So I do think that Davion Hannah is, are you going to take a ton out of exactly how he shot or exactly how he did this and that in this game? Maybe not, but I do think that you can take some things out of it, and it's that his athleticism and explosiveness is really, really good. So you got to like what you saw out of that. And then finally is London Jemison. I thought that London played a better game than he did in some of the exhibitions. He finished with 12 points. He didn't have his best shooting night. He was 1 of 6 from 3. He goes 3 of 5 from the free throw line. So definitely not his best shooting night, but I definitely thought you saw more out of London Jemison in this game that you did in some of the exhibitions. I thought that, he was playing within himself. He got a steal. He got some offensive rebounds. He was doing some of the gritty things that you really need to see. And I thought that, this was a better game for him than we saw in some of the exhibitions. Again, within the exhibitions, I talked about how it felt like Amari and Davion Hannah were kind of upstaging London Jemison, even though he was the higher ranked prospect. I still think that Amari Allen, is the guy who kind of has stolen the show over the early part of this season. He is somebody that is playing huge minutes. Obviously he gets the start in this game. He's somebody that he won the hard hat, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 12 points, 3 steals, a block, right? Amari Allen just did everything on the floor and really had a really great game. And so I think that in some ways that's starting to upstage a guy like London Jemison, but he clearly isn't upset by something like that. And he still gives you, again, he gives you 12 points, 4 rebounds, a couple of offensive rebounds with that, a steal. I thought that London Jemison, played well in this game. Overall, will he shoot better? Sure. I think that, that goes without saying, but I think that Alabama, played well and won this game fairly handily, like we expected. They win the offensive rebounding battle, they win the defensive rebounding battle. They assist on 70% of their baskets. They had 15 turnovers, which obviously natives will want to see that cleaned up. You had 7 blocks, 8 steals. Pretty clean from that standpoint. And like I said, the big things that Alabama did not shoot super well from 3. Obviously, those numbers were hurt a little bit by the fact that Amari Allen goes 2 of 6 and London Jemison goes 1 of 6. So obviously, those numbers definitely get hurt a little bit from that standpoint. But for example, Bol Bowen goes 0 of 2. I think that Bol Bowen's obviously a better shooter than that. He was a 40% guy at Florida State. Philon and Millette both go 2 of 4. Really happy to see that out of Philon. If you can continue to get that 3-point shooting out of Labaron, I think that just brings the next level of his game. And when you combine that with how good he has been from an assist perspective, from finishing around the rim, I think Labaron Philon is a first team All SEC guy, minimum, potentially first team All American. This is just an elite player that's going to have play massive minutes this entire season. And I didn't even mention that 22 points is his career high, right? That upstages any score he had last season. So starting it off with a bang with a career high, I think that this is not going to be the only career high that he has this season. I would fully expect LeBaron to have, some some high 20, 30-point games. I think that he really has that within him. And Labaron definitely is looking every bit the part and what he was able to do this off season. So thank you so much, everybody, for watching the show, for subscribing, for following along. As I mentioned, we're going to have an episode coming out later this week, probably on Thursday, talking about Alabama LSU in football and Alabama St. John's in basketball. The doubleheader is going to be happening on Saturday, with that St. John's game being 11 Central, 12 Eastern, and then the football game being that night. So if you are interested in that, go and subscribe to the channel. One last thing I forgot to mention up at the top, really sorry about the audio issues that happened in the last episode. I have switched over to a new software, which you can kind of see with my overlay and stuff. And I had an issue with the way it was uploaded. So I will definitely try to fix that for this episode. I know the first couple of episodes didn't have any issues, but I know there were some audio issues on YouTube for the last episode. So really sorry about that. I will definitely try to get it fixed for you guys. I don't want to have any audio problems. So please let me know down in the comments if y'all do hear anything, but I will definitely try to have it fixed. I really appreciate everybody for joining and for watching the show. If there's anything you want to have me cover, anything you want to talk about, throw it down in the comments. I do read all of them and try to reply to as many as I can. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next episode. Peace.